My name is Amelia Hart, 38 years old. Last Thursday, I was sitting at our kitchen table grading essays about moral courage when my boyfriend lost his mind over a sentence that, to me, felt like nothing more than basic decency. Mom's oncologist says she needs someone with her now, I said, fingers wrapped around a chipped mug of tea. I'm bringing her home. Dylan slammed his wine glass down so hard it cracked along the stem. Absolutely not, he snapped. That woman is not living in my house. I stared at the spreading ring of red on the table. The stain looked like something out of one of my mother's old paperbacks, a dramatic metaphor about wounds that don't heal. She has stage 3 cancer, I said quietly. The treatment center is 40 minutes away. She needs someone with her all the time. I'm not letting her die surrounded by strangers. He leaned forward, eyes blazing. Then let her stay there. That's what hospitals are for, Amelia. Our home is not a hospice. My throat tightened. She's my mother. He didn't even hesitate. Your mother dies alone, he said, each word like a hammer, or I'm gone. The silence after that was the kind that hums. From the doorway, I heard a sharp inhale. Chloe, our 14-year-old daughter, stood frozen there, fingers still curled around the doorframe, hair messy from homework and half-finished TikToks. She had heard everything. I looked at Dylan, really looked at him. The man who'd been making snide comments about Mom's dramatics since her diagnosis. The one who rolled his eyes when she couldn't make Chloe's recital because chemo had flattened her. The one who'd been casually, loudly discussing our inheritance with his sister Francesca over wine, like it was already in his bank account. I thought of the way he'd sneered last Thanksgiving when Mom couldn't stay long. Maybe she just likes the attention, he'd muttered under his breath, not quiet enough. Cough, cough, feel sorry for me. Pay my bills. Mom had heard him. She pretended she didn't, but I saw the way her jaw clenched. I set my mug down and folded my hands together to stop them from shaking. I'll pack tonight, I said softly. Dylan blinked, then barked out a laugh. You're bluffing, he said. You're not going to blow up 16 years over your bitter old mother. I stood up. Chloe, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Go grab your weekend bag. We're going to Grandma's. Chloe didn't move for a second. Then she nodded and bolted for her room. Dylan's face twisted into something ugly. Good luck affording even a studio apartment on your teacher's salary, he sneered. You'll be back here begging me to take you in. Maybe then I'll consider letting that woman visit for holidays. Supervised. He swirled the last of his wine like he'd already won. Actually, I said, a strange calm settling over me. About that. He paused, glass halfway to his lips. What? There are moments when your life splits cleanly into before and after. That was mine. See, what Dylan never really knew, because he never bothered to listen, was that my mother isn't just some retired librarian living off Social Security. My mother is Eleanor Hart. Yeah, that Eleanor Hart, the romance novelist whose books clogged grocery store racks in the 80s and 90s, who wrote under a dozen pen names, whose paperbacks were the ones you pretended not to buy and then read in a single night. She invested every penny, quietly, consistently. The house Dylan liked to call that dumpy rental from my childhood paid off, worth around $750K in this market. The pathetic little retirement fund he mocked when he thought she couldn't hear. Try $2.8 million in diversified investments. And the best part? She updated her will the day after Thanksgiving, the day she heard him call her a manipulative burden in the next room. Everything goes to me, every single penny. What are you talking about? Dylan's voice had changed. Less confident, more brittle. Mom's estate planning, I said. You know, the lawyer you said was probably just handling funeral costs and junk. He sent me the updated documents yesterday. I pulled out my phone, opened the email, and slid it across the table. I watched his face go from smug to pale to calculating in about 3 seconds. Baby, wait, he said quickly. Let's just talk about this. I was emotional. You know I love Eleanor. I was just... Her name is Mom, I said. And no, you don't. I turned and headed for the hallway. He followed me, cycling through manipulation tactics like a speedrun tutorial on toxic relationships. First came tears. 16 years, Amelia. You're throwing away 16 years over a fight? Over one sentence? His voice cracked. We're a family. Then threats. If you walk out that door, I'll take everything in the breakup. The car, the savings. I'll drag you through court until you're broke. You'll be living in your classroom. Then bargaining. She can visit every weekend. I'll cook for her. I'll drive her to chemo. We'll get a hospital bed right here in the living room, okay? Just don't leave. Finally, rage. You're a pathetic little mommy's girl, he spat. No wonder I started talking to women who actually act like women. That stopped me. I turned slowly. What women? His face went red. Nothing. I meant hypothetically. Chloe reappeared at the top of the stairs, backpack on her shoulder, phone in her hand. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes bright with anger. Dad's been texting Gabrielle, she said quietly, from his spin class. I saw the messages when he asked me to plug in his phone last week. The silence that followed was suffocating. Gabrielle, his ex-girlfriend, the one he swore he hadn't talked to in years, the one whose name used to make him strangely defensive. Dylan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Chloe, he snapped, you had no right to— Enough, I said. I picked up my keys. Chloe, let's go. We walked out of that house without looking back. I knew Dylan would call. I knew he'd scream, plead, perform. What I didn't know, not yet, was just how far he'd go to claw back the life and money he thought he was entitled to. But I was done letting him make choices for me. I chose my mother. I chose my daughter. And finally, I chose myself. Mom's house smelled like lemon oil and old paperbacks, the way it always had when I was a kid. The moment Chloe and I walked through the front door, it felt like stepping into a different universe, one where time moved slower and people spoke to each other without shouting. Mom was in her recliner, IV port taped neatly to her chest, a knitted blanket over her legs, and 2 books within reach. Her eyes lit up when she saw us. Did you bring my granddaughter? She asked. Or just your laundry? Chloe dropped her backpack and practically launched herself into her arms. Both, she said into Mom's shoulder. Definitely both. I watched them cling to each other, and something in my chest loosened for the first time in weeks. For a few hours, we tried to pretend life was simple. We made tea. We rewatched an old movie Mom loved. Chloe showed her TikToks. Mom pretended to understand them. But simplicity has a way of being temporary. Because by that night, Dylan had already begun losing his mind. He called first. Mom was at chemo, half asleep in a hospital chair when her phone buzzed. I saw his name flash across the screen. I answered. You had no right to take my daughter, he shouted without hello. My lawyer says you can't just run off. She's with me, I said calmly, her legal guardian, at her grandmother's, during chemo. He scoffed. Yeah, and your mother's probably milking that chemo for extra sympathy. She's been manipulating you your whole life. Nurses can hear you, I warned. Maybe you shouldn't scream about a cancer patient on speaker in an oncology ward. In the background, a nurse raised an eyebrow. Mom opened one eye, tired amusement flickering there. Dylan's voice got shriller. Put her on the phone. I want her to tell you to stop ruining everything. I hung up. 2 hours later, he drove to Mom's house. It was 2 a.m. when he started pounding on the door. Amelia, he shouted, open the door. We need to talk like adults. Mom's neighbor, a retired cop named Howard, was already half awake. By the 3rd slam, he was on his porch with his phone in hand. I opened the door just enough to see Dylan's red face through the crack. Go home, I said. You kidnapped my daughter, he yelled. Behind me, Chloe stepped into view. The police arrived minutes later. One officer gently asked Chloe if she wanted to go with her father. Chloe didn't hesitate. I'm staying with my mom and grandma, she said. Dad can kick rocks. The officer tried and failed not to laugh. Dylan was given a very clear choice, leave or ride in the back of the cruiser. He left, tires screeching. Mom shook her head. We could have auctioned him off to one of my more dramatic readers, she muttered. They love a good villain. Chloe snorted. I almost did too. We didn't know it yet, but that was Dylan's last attempt to win us back with volume. Everything after that, he tried to win with destruction. The first crack came from a direction I didn't expect. Mom, Chloe said one afternoon, sliding into the kitchen with her phone, you need to see this. She handed it to me. A private gym Facebook group was open. Hundreds of members. At the top of the feed, a post from Jordan Hartman. I recognized him. Solid guy. Married to Gabrielle, one of Dylan's spin class buddies. The post read, to the members of Steel Cycle Fitness, some of you know my wife, Gabrielle. Some of you know my friend, Dylan. I want you all to see what they've been doing. Below it were screenshots. Dozens of them. Text between Dylan and Gabrielle. Dylan, being with Amelia is like living with a walking wallet who never shuts up about lesson plans. Gabrielle, Jordan's turned into a boring dad. At least you still know how to have fun. Photos I didn't want to see. Plans to meet up while I was at parent-teacher conferences. Messages about me. Once her mom dies, we'll be set. She gets the inheritance, we get the payoff. My stomach twisted. Mom shuffled in, leaned over my shoulder, squinted. Well, she said dryly, at least they use punctuation correctly. By evening, the comments on Jordan's post were a wildfire. Former gym buddies expressing disgust. Trainers posting, "We don't tolerate this here." Members sharing stories about the way Dylan used to brag about his soon-to-be windfall. The next day, Gabrielle was banned from the gym. Jordan served her divorce papers during a spin class. Dylan's membership was revoked with a one-line email. "We do not tolerate harassment or predatory behavior in this community." I almost felt bad for them. Almost. Meanwhile, Dylan's sister Francesca called me. Not to apologize, not to check on Mom. She wanted to discuss the will. "Eleanor shouldn't forget family who actually appreciate her," she said. "I mean, I've always said how much I love her books. If she updated things to include us, it would be fair." "You mean you and Dylan," I said flatly. "Well, we've put up with you and her dramatics for years," she snapped. "You owe him something. He's devastated." "I don't owe him anything," I said. "Or you." She huffed. "You're being selfish. I'm calling a lawyer. You'll see how this works." I laughed and hung up. Mom, from her recliner, asked, "Was that the one with the bad highlights?" "Yes." "She's not getting a dedication either," Mom muttered. In the middle of all this chaos, something strangely soft happened. Chloe and Mom started spending entire afternoons together. They watched old black and white movies. Mom taught her to knit. Chloe read her lines from the creative writing assignments she'd never shown me. "Your granddaughter is a better writer than I am," Mom declared one night over soup. "Lies," I said. "Facts," Chloe said. It was the first time I'd heard her sound proud of herself in months. I tucked that moment into my chest like a warm stone. Then Dylan's lawyer contacted mine. The email was a work of fiction. Dylan wanted the house I owned before we ever got serious. Lifetime support, because I derailed his emotional stability. A portion of Mom's future estate, because marriage entitled him to long-term financial expectations. Full custody of Chloe plus child support. My lawyer read the list, then looked at me. "Is he high?" she asked. "I wish that were the explanation," I said. She smiled thinly. "Good. Then this will be fun." We prepared for mediation. Dylan thought he was going to walk into a boardroom and negotiate himself back into comfort and control. He had no idea he was walking into a controlled demolition of his own case. As the date approached, Mom seemed to sense the shift. "Wear something you can move in," she advised. Metaphorically, I mean. "You think he's going to make a scene?" I asked. She arched an eyebrow. "Oh, honey, men like Dylan don't just go quietly. They go loudly, with props." I didn't know what that meant, but 2 weeks later, when I walked into that mediation room and saw who he'd brought and what he tried to pull, it all made terrible, perfect sense. Mediation was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Normally, mediation rooms feel like neutral ground. Warm lights, stale coffee, bland beige walls meant to soothe tempers. But when I walked into that room, something inside me whispered, "This won't be calm, not today, not with Dylan." I was right. The mediator began with introductions, trying to maintain the fragile professionalism in the room, until Dylan leaned back, stretched, and smirked across the table. "We'll start," he said, as if the mediator wasn't there. Francesca slid a glossy folder forward. Their demands. Amelia's premarital house, the one she bought before meeting Dylan. 50% of my retirement savings. $3,000 monthly alimony. 50% of Mom's future estate. Full custody of Chloe. Child support from me. My jaw dropped. Mara didn't even flinch. She simply turned the page and said, "Hilarious." Francesca gasped, as if insult alone could win a case. "My client," she declared, "has sacrificed the best years of his life supporting Amelia emotionally." Mara snorted. "He emotionally supported her? With what? Infidelity and gym selfies?" Brendan puffed up. "Maybe we should discuss what's best for everyone." The mediator looked at him. "Are you counsel?" "No." "Then sit quietly." I almost laughed. Mara slid our response forward. Counter offer, Mr. Dylan receives his clothes, the car he is still financing, and 50% of the marital debt he created. Brendan choked. Francesca screeched, "You can't leave him with nothing. He gave Amelia everything." "Everything?" I repeated. "What did he give?" "A home," Francesca barked. "I already owned the home," she faltered. "Well, emotional support." Mara leaned in. "We have 200 pages of screenshots proving his emotional support consisted of cheating and calling Amelia a walking paycheck." The mediator inhaled sharply. "Let us But Dylan slammed his hand on the table. "You think you're winning because of your mother's money?" He spat at me. I didn't respond. He leaned closer, eyes wild. "You'll regret this." Oh, he had no idea. Dylan suddenly straightened, smoothing his tie. "I didn't want to do this here," he said dramatically, "but since Amelia insists on ruining our family—" He paused, touching his stomach like he was in a soap opera. I'm going to be a father again. The room went silent. Oh no, oh please no. He didn't. He absolutely did. I got Gabrielle pregnant, he announced proudly. A real woman who actually wants a family with me. And you, he pointed at me, drove me into her arms. Mara blinked. Your ex-girlfriend? His chin lifted. Yes. And you're proud of that? She makes me feel alive. Mara dug into her folder. Before we address fertility fantasies, let's talk timing. She pulled up a printed screenshot, one Chloe had given me. Gabrielle. Starting birth control again. I can't risk getting pregnant by that loser. Dylan went sheet white. Mara continued, and here's a message from Dylan 6 months ago saying, and I quote, pretending to be attracted to her makes me physically ill. Francesca's mouth fell open. Brennan looked like he wanted to disappear. The mediator pinched the bridge of his nose. Mara leaned back. So unless Immaculate Conception has resumed in New York State, we'll consider that claim null. The silence stretched, then snapped. Dylan exploded. He flipped the mediation table, papers, pens, water bottles, a ceramic bowl of mints, crashing everywhere. You ruined my life, he screamed at me, face contorted. You stole my future, you and your sick mother. He lunged toward me. Security rushed in, grabbing him by the arms as he kicked and shouted. You think this is over? He yelled as they dragged him out. I'll get what I'm owed. You'll see. The door slammed behind them. The mediator looked at me, eyes stunned. Well, he muttered, that's the clearest verdict I've seen in months. Mara smiled. We're done here. I thought that meltdown would be Dylan's rock bottom. I was wrong. That night, that same night, Dylan convinced Francesca that they needed to retrieve marital property from my mother's house. Marital property from a cancer patient's house at midnight in the rain. They brought Brendan and Francesca's boyfriend Luther as muscle. They tried to jimmy the back door open. Then, because stupidity is a contagious disease, they attempted to move Mom's antique piano outside in the rain. But here's what they didn't know. Mom's neighbor, retired police officer, set up a full security system for her last year. The second their crowbar hit the door, alarm blared, floodlights activated, cameras recorded their faces in perfect 4K. Howard dialed 911. Police arrived to find 4 soaking wet adults wrestling a piano bench down a wheelchair ramp. All 4 were arrested on the spot. Burglary, attempted theft, trespassing. Brendan had outstanding warrants. Luther was on probation. It was a circus. At home, Mom watched the security footage on my laptop with Chloe curled under her arm. When Francesca slipped in the mud and fell face first into the piano bench, Mom paused the video. Huh, she said thoughtfully. They couldn't even steal competently. Chloe snorted so hard, tea almost came out her nose. I laughed for the first time in what felt like months. But deep down I knew. Dylan wasn't finished. Men like him never end quietly. They end loudly, pettily, and with social media. And I was right. If Dylan's meltdown during mediation was an explosion, what happened next was the fallout cloud. Messy, toxic, and drifting into every corner of our lives. Because some people destroy quietly. Dylan? He destroys publicly. 2 days after the break-in arrest, I woke to 37 missed notifications. Texts, DMs, emails, a tag from Mom's publisher, a message from my principal, voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize. Dylan had launched a full-scale social media rampage. He posted on Facebook, then Instagram, then Twitter, then a TikTok rant so unhinged the comments read like a live comedy show. He called himself a victim of prolonged emotional abuse, a single father fighting for justice, a man whose partner kidnapped his daughter, a protector of an elderly cancer patient being exploited for money by a narcissist. He even tagged my school, claiming I was using my position as a teacher to manipulate the community. Then he tagged Mom's publisher, demanding they investigate financial abuse. By noon, he had nearly 500 comments. Most were variations of, "Dude, didn't you just get arrested? You cheated on your partner. Why are you playing victim? Weren't you the one dragging the piano in the rain?" But a few people believed him, and that was enough to send a shiver down my spine. Mom's publisher put out a statement that should be framed in gold. Ms. Hart's medical and financial matters are private. We can confirm she is receiving excellent care from her daughter, Amelia. P.S. Her new manuscript is ahead of schedule. The P.S. was a direct kill shot. Mom cackled when she read it. A real shaking laugh, the kind that made nurses peek in to make sure she was breathing properly. At school, my principal called me into his office. He closed the door, exhaled, and said, "Amelia, your boyfriend is having a public mental breakdown." I showed him everything. Screenshots, arrest report, mediation footage, recorded threats, security camera proof. By the time I finished, he sat back in his chair, hands clasped. Okay, he said. You're cleared. I'm filing a harassment complaint with the district. He won't be allowed within 100 feet of school property. I walked out lighter, not healed, but lighter. Not satisfied with social media, Dylan created an entire blog. Abandoned by a narcissist. He painted himself as the hero of a tragic love story. In his version, Mom faked cancer. I orchestrated a financial coup. Chloe had been brainwashed. For a moment, just a moment, I worried people might believe him. Then the internet did its thing. Someone posted the break-in arrest record. Someone else posted the cheating screenshots from Jordan. Then Mom's longtime editor commented, I have worked with Eleanor Hart for 30 years. This man tried to steal a piano from her. Draw your own conclusions. The blog vanished within 3 days. Deleted entirely. But the damage to Dylan's reputation? Permanent. Meanwhile, Dylan's revolving door lawyers went through 3 resignations before the 4th one finally contacted ours. Her proposal was comedy. Dylan would accept $50,000, plus the financed car, plus no alimony, if I agreed to drop criminal charges for the break-in. My lawyer responded, Mrs. Hart cannot drop charges. The state is prosecuting. That is how crime works. We didn't hear back for a week. At school, rumors spread faster than wildfire. Some students heard about Dylan's blog before it got deleted. One even asked Chloe, Is it true your dad tried to steal a piano? Chloe shrugged. Yeah, he also almost dropped it on his head. Her therapist later reported, She's handling this with surprising clarity. She has a strong sense of what's unhealthy and what she wants in her family. Chloe was healing. Slowly, but healing. Then it happened. Dylan went live on Instagram for his 847 followers, standing in his apartment wearing sunglasses indoors, looking like a man who had Googled villain aesthetic at 3 a.m. I am suing my ex, he announced, for financial abuse. I am suing her mother's estate for emotional damages, and I am suing the mediation center for allowing violence against me. He held up a photo of the mediation table he flipped. You see this? Emotional trauma. Someone commented, Bro, you flipped it. Another, Isn't your new fiancé still in jail? Dylan froze, then threw his phone. Live stream ended. Mom watched the recording later and laughed so hard she had to pause her oxygen. A week later, Mom's oncologist came into the exam room with a strange smile. It's shrinking, he said, faster than expected. She might not even need the full chemo course. When I told her about Dylan's meltdown press conference, she wiped tears of laughter from her eyes. Well, she said, I suppose every book needs a good antagonist. Then she grew thoughtful. I'm updating my will again, she said. Chloe gets a full ride to any college she wants. You get everything else. And I'm adding a clause. A clause? She winked. If Dylan or any member of his family contests it, $100 goes to charity for adult literacy, since clearly, she pointed upward, they cannot read the room. Dylan arrived for the final divorce hearing wearing a white tuxedo with a boutonniere, symbolic of the marriage bond, he told the judge. The judge stared for 10 seconds, then said, Sir, you committed infidelity, broke into your ex-partner's property, and your girlfriend helped attempt theft of a piano. Sit down. Francesca wore a Team Dylan t-shirt. No one else did. Brendan attended via video from jail in an orange jumpsuit. The proceedings were a slaughter. Dylan's lawyer tried to argue for alimony, house, assets, Mom's future estate. The judge, for the 4th time, inheritance is not marital property. Your mother-in-law could leave her entire estate to a stray cat, and that would be her right. Mom, on video, waved sweetly. Cats are lovely, she said, but I prefer Amelia and Chloe. Dylan had a full meltdown, screamed accusations, threw Francesca's purse, and got physically removed. He earned 10 days in jail for contempt. The criminal trial is next month. Brendan dumped Gabrielle. Francesca is now dating Brendan. Mom calls their family tree a wreath. Mom finished chemo and is officially in remission. Chloe joined her school's writing club. Her first story? My dad went crazy and all I got was this trauma. Her teacher called it therapeutically brilliant. And me? I'm dating Micah, the nurse from Mom's treatment center. He listens. He laughs. He doesn't flinch when life gets messy. Mom's new book comes out next month. She dedicated it to my daughter Amelia, who knows when to take out the trash. I framed my finalized divorce papers, not out of bitterness, but because the judge's line, Petitioner wore a white tuxedo to divorce proceedings. Is comedy gold? We're living our best lives now. Mom writing. Chloe healing. Me loving again. And Dylan? Somewhere out there, still spiraling. But none of that is my problem anymore.